Good morning. I hope, like me, you're all still alive after last evening. And compliments to our hosts. It was a very pleasant evening with lots of good food. And as you can see, I'm hiding behind this because the results of it are very visible. So I'm just waiting for the presentation. So you know, time is relative, isn't it? It's just the fourth one. Sorry. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Thank you. You will see from the heading, and this is the opening slide, identifying the most important competencies of cultural mediators. And it's the next bit really that is the important point from our perspective. It's the interrelationships between these competencies. Because competencies, they really don't stand alone. There has to be an interrelationship between the competencies of the individuals. Conscious of the very strict chairperson that we have, I better speak quickly. So the nature of the presentation this morning will be, you know, why is cultural mediation important? And I will answer that question in the context of the Irish scenario. And then we will look at the features of a cultural mediator. And then we will pose the research questions. We will explain to you this new research methodology that has been developed, and we will show you our findings and conclusions from that work. So why is cultural mediation important? Well, again, as I said, I'm going to look at this in the context of the Irish scene. But I think the Irish scene, as you will see if you go into the SONETOR site, it does mirror a bit, mirrors a lot actually, the European scene and indeed the worldwide scene. So the levels of migration, both legal and illegal, have increased significantly. Our countries have become multicultural. Very simple to do that. But the focus now must be to make our society intercultural. And if we do not address it, well then, I mean, we can see this. I don't have to point out the need or the outcomes of if we do not address these issues. So why is it important? And again, as I said, I'm answering this from our perspective, and you can try and answer it from your own perspective. And basically, Ireland is the only territory in this world anyway, on this planet, whose population is smaller now than it was 2 centuries ago. This is quite interesting. You know, we had a huge famine in 1948, 1949. Our population went from 8 million to 4 million. That is a reasonable distribution between death and immigration or emigration. According to the 2011 census, 1 in 8 people now living in Ireland declare themselves as not being Irish. Now again, that's an interesting one because we have developed a good, strong new system of awarding Irish citizenship, and we have awarded Irish citizenship to a very large, significant number of newcomers in recent times. So in 1990s, before our infamous boom known as the Celtic Tiger, we were probably the most homogeneous nation in Europe. As a result, you can see from the 2011 census in Ireland, we have become one of the most heterogeneous in Europe, with 199 nationalities recorded in the last census. So this again shows you the pattern of migration in Ireland. And you will see that despite the fact that we are still in recession, out of the Troika, so what, but we're still in recession, migration is still slightly increasing on year on year from 2011 to 2013. Just an increase, but it is increasing. So we asked at the very start, you know, what are the important competencies that cultural mediators should possess? Now, we didn't go to the academics. We went to the people who work as mediators and need mediators. Okay? Now, I know academics would consider these the gifted amateurs, and really they're not. You know, and I'm not being cynical. You know, I just have a healthy disrespect for everything. Okay? So these are the group of people that we met, and we got them working. We got them to think about what they consider important and what are the features of a cultural mediator that they like to see. So we used this new technique. We will explain it slightly or in a bit more detail later. So, and then we were looking at the various things like non-prejudice, continued learning, significant impact. And these are the people, as I said, who came up with these or came up with the ideas. So what did they come up with as the most important competencies which should be possessed by cultural mediators in the European, and what relationships? Now, at this stage, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Morteza, who will talk about the methodology, which is interactive management and idea writing, is what we did. So, Morteza, will you take it from here?
Hello and good morning, everyone, and thank you again for coming here and hearing us, and thank you, Dermot, for very good presentation of the last slides. As Dermot mentioned, we used a very novel and interactive methodology in this study. Its name is Interactive Management and Idea Writing. And participants of this study were two groups of experts from a wide range of nationalities, including Ireland, Iran, Brazil, Ghana, Spain, and Chile. And the reason that we used these kind of methodologies was we tried to find a kind of consensus between our participants, and also we tried to find interrelationships between the components that we were looking to find them. So for these two reasons, we use these two kind of methodologies, which are pretty new, at least to this area of research. And as Dermot mentioned, at the first stage of each session with a group of experts, we ask them to think about our research question. Which competencies are most important for cultural mediators to be successful in their work? So they thought, and they had 2, 3, 5 minutes time to write just one competency in a paper and put it on the wall, and then describe and explain their idea about that competency to others. And others had the opportunity to write and have some comments on the explained idea. And this explaining and generating ideas was repeated for at least 3-4 times. And at the end of the process, we had around 25, 26 competencies sticked on the wall. And at the end of the stage 1, they had 5 votes, 5 stickers as 5 votes, and they were able to select 5 of the most important competencies on the wall from the discussions that have been arised in the first section of the meeting. At the second stage, using interpretive structural modeling software, we try to identify the relationship between the selected competencies. So we conducted 2 IM sessions, and here I'm going to represent 2 enhancement structures showing and indicating the final selected competencies as well as the interrelationships. Okay, here is the first enhancement structure. This structure has to be read from left to right. At the left, you can see cultural awareness. It means that cultural awareness is the cause of all of the other selected and identified cultural mediators' competencies. Cultural awareness took 2 votes. empathy took 4 votes, fairness took 3 votes, and so on. But cultural awareness affects empathy, fairness, openness, and helpful behavior. And the 4 competencies who are in a box at the middle of this circle affect information sharing. And those 4 competencies who are in a box, it means that they have a kind of interrelationships amongst each other. So what we can learn from this enhancement structure is twofold. First one is which competencies are most important for cultural mediators to be possessed, and second, the interrelationship between these competencies. So it's very important when you want to speak and when you want to design a training structure for any kind of competency, for any kind of feature, disposition, it's very important to know cause and effect relationship between those components as well. It's not enough to just find them and leave their importance and leave their order and leave their interrelationship with each other. So one of the most important features and outcomes of this study is identifying the interrelationship between the competencies as well. And you can see the interrelationships here. Okay, the second IM session, which was conducted 2 weeks ago in Galway, one of the Irish cities, at the end of the first stage, we identified a set of cultural mediators competencies. You can see these set here. Facilitative, being a totally free of judgment, proactivity, sympathy, tolerance, comprehensibility, and so on. And at the end of this stage, they were supposed to vote and select the most important ones. And it was very interesting that some of these competencies did not get even 1 vote. It means that as the result of those discussions, even the generators of those competencies didn't vote to them. And I want to come back to my first argument that we used IM session to make and increase consensus amongst the participants. And that consensus was created, and we can see it here because most of these competencies didn't get even 1 vote by their generators. So the final list of the selected competencies can be seen in the second enhancement structure. Interestingly, the cultural awareness is same to the first one. It means that there is a consensus between different groups, even different groups, about cultural awareness, and they believe that cultural awareness is not just important, is a cause and is effective to other competencies of cultural mediators as well. So here in the first stage, cultural awareness and active listening have a kind of interrelationships with together. In the second stage, proactivity and understanding differences have a kind of interrelationships. And in the last stage, non-prejudice, tolerance, and continuous learning have a kind of interrelationships between each other. And again, from the left to right, the first set of competencies affect the second set, and the second set affect the last set. Okay, so here we have 2 sets of competencies of cultural mediators. In another tables that due to the lack of the time, we ignored them to present them here, show us the importance of each of these competencies according to an algorithm. In that algorithm, we calculated the number of votes, the number of competencies which are affected by another competencies, and the level of competencies in these enhancement structures, and we calculated the importance of each of these competencies. And these results all will be published in the proceeding of the conference. So I want to make 2 general conclusions further to the findings of this study and indicating which competencies are important and what are the interrelationships between these competencies. We want to draw your attention to 2 key words. The first keyword is context. And the second keyword is interrelationships. We believe that in any of same studies to this study, we need to pay special attention to the context of the study. For example, if we want to speak about cultural mediators competencies and if we want to try to train cultural mediators competencies, it's not enough to just search in the Google Scholar and find the papers and find, for example, their conclusions, their findings, and rely on them. We need to pay attention to the context of our research, our needs, our society, and then try to find results and findings relevant to our context. For example, the cultural mediators competencies which are important and effective in Europe are different from those cultural mediators competencies which are important and effective in Asia or in America or in other countries and other regions. So the context is very important, and that was the reason that we did this study specifically for Ireland. And the second issue that me and Dermot mentioned it perhaps 3 or 4 times in this presentation is interrelationship. It's very important. It's not enough to just find competencies or components in the response of a research question and leave the interrelationships and don't address them in our research. It's very specifically when you are speaking about the training, about educating, when you want to design a curriculum, when you want to design a training program, it's very important to find and know interrelationships between the components that you want to train them. So that's our second interrelationship, our second general conclusion, and we want to thank you for that.